Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It all began when I noticed a change in myself, a shift I couldn't quite explain. I'd been happily married for years to my husband, Jake. Our life together had always been steady, built on love, mutual respect, and a shared vision for the future. But over time, life became more about the daily grindwork, home responsibilities, and parenting. The passion we once shared seemed to fade, and in its place was comfort, familiarity, and a routine that left little room for connection. Then came Adam. He was a new colleague at work, and his energy was unlike anyone else's I'd encountered. He had a natural warmth that made people feel comfortable around him, and he was incredibly good at his job. His positive energy radiated from him, and he had this easygoing way of making every challenge seem manageable. I found myself gravitating toward him more than I expected, not because of attraction, but because of his kindness and the way he treated everyone with such care. We began working on a project together, and as the days went by, I started to notice how easy it was to talk to him. His genuine interest in everything I said made me feel valued. I hadn't realized how much I had been craving that kind of attention until Adam gave it to me so effortlessly. We spent hours working side by side, and with each passing day, I felt myself connecting with him on a deeper level intellectually, emotionally, and in ways I hadn't felt in a long time. One late evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Adam and I were still at work, trying to finalize some important details before the deadline. My mind was exhausted, but Adam's presence brought a certain calmness to the space. He could sense I was overwhelmed and gently suggested, "Why don't you take a break? You've been working nonstop. I'll handle this part for a while." I was surprised by how considerate he was. It wasn't just the way he took charge of the work, but the way he noticed my stress and stepped in to help. I accepted his offer, grateful for the moment of respite. As I took a seat on the couch in the office lounge, I couldn't help but admire his professionalism and compassion. He had a way of making everything feel easier, not just in the workplace, but in life as well. His words were comforting, his demeanor calming. When he sat next to me, the closeness felt natural, yet my heart started to race unexpectedly. "You're doing a great job, you know," he said with a gentle smile, his voice low and reassuring. "This project is in good hands because of you." I smiled back, a warmth spreading through me. "I don't know if I believe that," I admitted. "I feel like I'm always on the edge of running out of time." Adam laughed softly, shaking his head. "Well, you're not alone in that. But I promise you've got this. Just breathe and take it one step at a time." For a moment, everything else faded away. It wasn't about the project, the deadlines, or the work anymore. It was just the two of us, talking, connecting in a way that felt like it was meant to happen. I could feel the weight of my own emotions, the unspoken yearning for something more than the routine life I'd become accustomed to. There was something in the way Adam made me feel like I mattered, something so simple yet profound. Before I realized it, we were talking about our personal lives, our childhoods, our families, our dreams, and the conversation flowed effortlessly, like we had known each other for years. I felt an emotional connection forming, something deeper than I'd ever experienced with anyone else. That evening, we finished our work and decided to grab a quick dinner at a nearby restaurant. As we sat across from each other, enjoying our meal, the bond between us continued to grow. I found myself laughing more freely, smiling in a way that felt genuine and unguarded. It had been so long since I had felt that way, and I didn't want to let the moment go. As the night came to a close, Adam walked me to my car. There was a quiet moment between us as we stood outside in the cool night air, the streetlights casting a soft glow around us. I turned to him, a feeling of gratitude rising in my chest. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for today and for just being there. I didn't realize how much I needed someone like you." Adam smiled, his eyes warm and sincere. "It's nothing. I'm just glad I could help." For a second, it felt like there was more to say. A weight in the air between us, a tension that neither of us acknowledged. I could feel the spark of something deeper, something that had begun to form naturally over the course of our time together. As I got into my car, I felt a sense of clarity. I wasn't looking for anything more than a connection, a reminder that I was still capable of feeling alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. Adam's kindness had rekindled something within me, something I hadn't even realized was missing. It wasn't about a fleeting attraction, but about the simple, quiet realization that human connection is powerful, and sometimes we need someone to remind us of our worth. In the days that followed, I continued to work with Adam. Our connection deepened, not because of anything physical or romantic, but because of the way we supported each other, challenged each other, and grew together in the workplace. He remained a steady presence, always willing to help, always making me feel heard and valued. And while the connection between us was strong, I knew where my heart truly belonged. I returned home each day to my family, to the life I had built with my husband. I was reminded that the spark I had been missing wasn't something someone else could give me. It was something I needed to rekindle within myself. It was clear to me that real love, the kind that lasts, wasn't about the fleeting moments of excitement. It was about the quiet support, the emotional connection, and the shared understanding that made life worth living. As time passed, I learned to appreciate the balance between my family, my work, and the people who enriched my life. And I continued to value Adam, not just as a colleague, but as someone who had reminded me of the power of human connection, of kindness, and of the importance of taking care of oneself. As the weeks passed, the dynamic between Adam and I settled into a comforting routine. At work, we were a strong team. I began to look forward to our interactions, not because of any lingering romantic attraction, but because of the meaningful conversations and moments of clarity I felt when we were together. His insight into challenges at work, his thoughtfulness when discussing ideas, and the way he always listened with full attention made me feel valued in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. Still, there was a part of me that struggled. The emotional connection I had with Adam was undeniable, but I also knew it was important to focus on my family. My relationship with Mark had changed over the years, but it wasn't broken. There was love there, even if it had become buried under the weight of responsibilities and routine. The problem wasn't our love for each other, it was the neglect we had allowed to take root in our marriage. One evening, as I sat on the couch with Mark, we talked about our relationship in a way we hadn't in years. The conversations that had once been filled with hopes, dreams, and shared ambitions had dwindled to talks about bills and grocery lists. But tonight felt different. Mark was looking at me, really looking at me, as if seeing the person he had once fallen in love with. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he said, his voice tentative, "about how we've been going through the motions lately. It's not that I don't love you, but I feel like we've lost something. I've missed you, Layla, not just as the mother of our kids or the woman who handles everything at home, but as the person I fell in love with." I could feel the weight of his words, the sincerity in them. It wasn't easy to hear, but it was a truth I had to face. I had been so focused on keeping up with life that I had forgotten what it meant to be connected to him. In that moment, I realized how much we both needed to take a step back and rediscover what we had. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew it was worth the effort. "We've both been busy," I said softly, "but I've missed you too. I think I've lost sight of who I am in all of this. I've been so caught up in everything else that I haven't taken care of myself." "US the way we deserve." Mark reached out, taking my hand in his. "We can fix this, together." It wasn't the grand gestures that made me believe him, but the simple, steady support he had always shown. It was that same quiet confidence that reminded me of the love we shared. Slowly, we began to take the time to reconnect, not by pretending. Things hadn't changed, but by embracing the reality of where we were and being open to where we could go from here. As for Adam, our bond continued to be one of mutual respect. We shared ideas, supported each other at work, and laughed together. But there was no pushing, no rush. We both understood that our connection had been a catalyst for personal growth, not a path to something more. He continued to be a friend, someone I could count on, and I continued to value the way he had reminded me that I was worth more than just the roles I had played in my life. One afternoon, as I sat in a cafe with Adam reflecting on the past few months, he shared something that surprised me. "You've grown so much, Layla," he said, his voice thoughtful. "I've watched you really step into yourself over the last few months, and it's been incredible to see. You're more than just the person everyone else needs. You're someone who has so much to give to herself." His words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on finding validation in others, whether it was through my family or my work relationships, that I had forgotten the most important validation I needed was from myself. And in that moment, I realized that the most profound changes had come from within. It wasn't about making a choice between Mark and Adam. It was about making the choice to find myself again, to rediscover my passions, my purpose, and my sense of worth. "I'm grateful for you, Adam," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "You've been a huge part of helping me realize what I need. But I also know that I need to find my own way. I can't keep relying on anyone else to fill the spaces that only I can fill for myself." He smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "You're on the right path, Layla, and I'm glad I could be a part of your journey." As the days went on, I focused on what truly mattered, rediscovering my marriage, reconnecting with Mark, and nurturing the life we had built together. I wasn't perfect, and neither was he, but we were willing to try again. We set aside time for ourselves, no longer allowing the demands of life to overshadow our connection. We laughed more, talked more, and held hands like we used to, like we were two people who still had so much to explore together. At the same time, I didn't forget the lessons I had learned from my time with Adam. It wasn't about romance or infatuation. It was about being seen, being heard, and being valued for who I truly was. And I knew that the most important relationship I had was the one I had with myself. I had learned that the key to any relationship, whether romantic or platonic, was respect, communication, and the willingness to grow together. By the time I looked back at the journey I had been on, I realized that the love I had once thought I was missing had always been there. It was a quiet, steady love, built on respect and understanding, with room for passion to grow at its own pace. It wasn't about rushing or trying to force something that wasn't ready. It was about allowing the connection to evolve naturally. As I sat with Mark one evening, watching the sunset from our porch, I realized how far we had come. We were no longer just going through the motions. We had learned to appreciate each other in new ways. And as I leaned in to kiss him, I knew that we were starting a new chapter, one that was built on honesty, respect, and a deeper understanding of who we were as individuals and as partners. It wasn't the fiery passion of the past, but it was real and it was enough. Together, we had found a love that had stood the test of time, and instead, we had created something new, a love that was just as powerful, but far more meaningful. As the months continued to pass, the transformation in my life and my marriage deepened. What started as small shifts began to shape the way I saw both myself and my relationship with Mark. I realized that love, when nurtured and given room to breathe, doesn't have to be grandiose or constant to be meaningful. It can be found in the quiet moments, the shared glances, the soft conversations, the simple acts of care. And that's exactly what I began to experience with Mark. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the countryside, a place we had once gone to when we were younger, before life became so full of responsibilities. It was the kind of trip we needed a chance to reconnect without distractions. The drive was peaceful, with nothing but the sound of our old playlist and the hum of the car engine. When we arrived, the crisp air and the scent of fresh earth made everything feel like it was falling into place. We spent the day exploring the small town, walking hand in hand along narrow cobblestone streets, stopping at the local market to pick up fresh produce, and chatting with the people who had lived there for years. There was a simplicity to everything, a kind of peace that we had both longed for without even realizing it. That evening, as the sun set, we sat on the porch of the cozy little cabin we rented. The sky had turned a soft shade of purple, and the world around us was quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves. It was a perfect moment, One of those rare times when everything just felt right. Mark reached over and took my hand in his touch warm and steady. I looked at him, my heart swelling with love. "I've missed this," I said softly, my voice tinged with emotion. "I've missed us, Mark. I've missed the way we used to be." He smiled, a small but genuine smile, and squeezed my hand. "I've missed you too," he replied, his voice just as soft. "But I think we're getting back to something. It's not the same as it was, but it feels real, and I'm grateful for that." I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the weight of the moment settle around us. It wasn't about trying to recapture the past, but about building something new together. We had both changed, and in many ways, that was a beautiful thing. It meant that we were no longer stuck in the roles we had once played, but that we were learning to love each other for who we were now. "Do you think we can keep this up?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Unsure but hopeful, Mark turned his face toward me, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment it felt like time had stopped. "I know we can," he said, his words filled with sincerity. "We've always had the strength to make it work, Layla. It's just a matter of remembering why we fell in love in the first place. And I remember." In that moment, I realized how much I needed to hear those words. I had been so focused on what was wrong, on the things we had lost, that I had forgotten about the things we had built together. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that made it worth fighting for. As we sat there, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. A peace that came from knowing that love wasn't always about passion or excitement. Sometimes it was about consistency, about being there for each other. Through the quiet moments, and in those moments, love could grow in ways that were deeper and more lasting than any fleeting spark. Later that night, as we lay in bed together, I could feel the warmth of his body next to mine, the steady rise and fall of his chest as he breathed in and out. It was a rhythm I had known for years, but now it felt different. It felt like we were in sync in a way we hadn't been in a long time. I turned to him, my heart full of affection, and kissed him softly on the lips. "I love you, Mark," I whispered, the words carrying a depth of meaning I hadn't fully realized until that moment. He kissed me back, his lips gentle and reassuring. "I love you too, Layla, more than I ever did before." We didn't need to say anything else. The words had been spoken, but what mattered was the feeling behind them. We were no longer just going through the motions. We were living our love, growing together, rediscovering the strength of our bond. The next few weeks were filled with small but meaningful gestures. We started planning more outings, finding little ways to make each other laugh, and taking time to really listen to each other. It wasn't about the big romantic gestures. It was about the quiet moments, the shared glances, and the gentle touches that spoke louder than words ever could. One evening, after another long day of work, Mark and I sat on the porch again, our legs entwined as we watched the sunset together. The sky was streaked with pinks and oranges, the world around us bathed in the warm glow of evening. I leaned into him, feeling the weight of the day lift with each breath. "I'm glad we're doing this," I said, my voice soft but filled with meaning. "It feels like we've been given a second chance, Mark, a chance to really live, not just exist." He looked at me, his eyes full of love, and smiled. "We've always had that chance, Layla. It was just waiting for us to take it." And in that moment, I knew he was right. Love wasn't just about passion or infatuation. It was about choosing each other, day after day, and finding joy in the quiet moments that make life worth living. With Mark by my side, I felt like I had everything I needed. We didn't need to chase the past or search for something outside of ourselves. What we had was already enough. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized that the love we shared was exactly what I had been searching for all along.